Alrighty, welcome back everybody. This is a Shadows Over Innistrad draft, taking a quick break from the standard game, and going to dive right into this single elimination event and see what we have here. So we have a couple of rares to choose from. Triskaidekaphobia, pretty fun looking one, but not sure if that's going to make the cut exactly. And a Handwire Militia Captain, who I think we're going to go with. It's a nice aggressive 2-drop, 2 mana, 2/2 that potentially transforms into a much more powerful creature that creates white and black human clerics at the end of the turn. Other things to note, really, just a couple of uncommons and not much else, really. The white-black dual land coming around might be an interesting pickup later, but continuing, this is probably where it gets a bit more interesting. We can kind of diverge into one of several archetypes here. So we got the Scourge Wolf, which is aggressively costed, double red. It's kind of difficult to cast in a dual color deck, but 2/2 for 2, again, with first strike and potentially double strike, although a red-white deck might not be the easiest to achieve Delirium. Ghoul Steed I like a lot, 5 mana for a 4/4 that has some level of recursion, also enables Madness, but that can be a little more difficult to finagle. A green-black dual land and Spectral Shepherd to round out the uncommons here. Shepherd could be interesting, but if we're going with a human theme, perhaps, the second side of this, the Westvale cult leader, doesn't really care about humans or spirits, just creatures. So we could definitely just have that early and then go with like a blue-white spirits deck and nothing else too interesting. I really like white and blue. It's not the most popular archetype, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Shepherd and look out for some more spirits potentially. I think that the Scourge Wolf, while a good card, isn't necessarily what we want to play right here. Although I might regret that now that a Fiery Temper, one of the 2 best commons, I believe, has just come around to us. Just a Lightning Bolt Madness, or 3 mana to deal 3 damage at instant speed. Quite strong in a set with limited removal like this. However, along with blue, we've got Just the Wind, another Madness card, and Unsummon. Besides that, I like Rancid Rats a lot, but not really in an aggressive deck, which we might be looking to play. Epitaph Golem, not so much what I would want unless we're going into a Delirium deck, maybe a green-blue or green-black or something like that. Could be worth keeping our eyes on, though. And a Drownyard Temple, which also goes pretty well with the Epitaph Golem style of decks. I think I might just go for the Fiery Temper. I think it's a much stronger card than Just the Wind or Rancid Rats, and it's not like we're exactly cutting ourselves on what we can play. The Spectral Shepherd, just as a 3 mana 2/2 flyer, even if we don't have blue mana, might be worth playing here. However, now we have another Just the Wind. Dissension in the Ranks looks potentially attractive, but it's really not that great of a card. For 5 mana, a conditional removal spell. You like something a bit better and more reliable. Rise from the Tides, certainly not looking like a deck that would make use of that. You want, I think, somewhere in the range of 9 to 12 maybe instants and sorceries to make use of it, and I just don't think that we're going to be heading in that direction quite this early. Aside from that, Just the Wind and a Sanguinary Mage. I do like this as a 2-drop actually, especially if you have lots of instants and sorceries. The prowess is really strong. I think it's between those two, and I think here I'm just going to go with the Sanguinary Mage. Keep going for early drops, and red especially for the Militia Captain to make use of. Really regretting passing on the Scourge Wolf now. It's pretty comparable to the Spectral Shepherd, but if we can get a nice red-white aggro deck going, then that would have been a nice card to have. Here we got another series of aggressive 2-drops, the Double Thorn Fox and the Moorland Drifter. Besides that, nothing too interesting really. If we had like a number of Madness Enablers, the Vampire could be worthwhile. Also like a red-black Madness Vampire deck. Seems like a lot of fun to play. Might go with the Drifter, as it is a spirit. Goes somewhat well with the Spectral Shepherd. It's another 2-drop that has some potential later in the game. I like 2-drops that are good on turn 2, but not totally outclassed at the later game. Not saying that this is a fantastic thing to draw on turn 7 or 8, but it could get the job done. Here we have a number of really strong red cards actually. Geist Blast, another removal spell that has the potential to multicast an instant or sorcery. There's a couple of really nice synergies with that, cards that just pair phenomenally well, and a couple that, I mean, just Fiery Temper. It's not amazing or anything, but it's pretty easy to pull off and certainly worthwhile. 2 cards dealing out a tremendous amount of damage, but there's also a Mad Prophet, which I think I'm going to take. It's a hasty 2, not the most impressive combat stats, hasty 2/2 for 4 mana, but that discarding a card to draw a card is very nice for clearing out your hand of worthless or less desirable cards, I should say. And with the instant speed discard outlet to trigger Madness, I think it's worth the pickup. So the red cards keep coming. We actually have 2 very similar cards at different rarities here. The uncommon Dance with Devils being instant speed versus the Devil's Playground being sorcery speed and slightly more costly. Here you get 2 devils with when they die they deal 1 damage to a creature or player. Here you get 4. So the trade-off of additional mana and going from instant to sorcery speed for double the number of devils. And I think I'm going to take the Devil's Playground here. Also a game trail if we were to go red and green. Would be nice to get one of these back, but unfortunately there will not be enough cards left over. Also, this being a foil, I think makes it win out in my eyes, so I'll take the Devil's Playground here. Reduce to Ashes, nothing amazing, but it's a removal spell. A little costly, but it's pretty much guaranteed to take care of just about anything in your way. And also the exiling a creature clause is pretty relevant in a set with zombies and the like. So it's either between that or the Inquisitor's Ox. I think I'd just rather have the pretty sizable removal spell here. Also note a Silent Observer. Definitely not what we want in an aggressive deck, which is sort of what we're looking to shape up to be. It does pair well with the Spectral Shepherd, however, in a control-y shell, sort of. Can block and bring it back to hand if necessary. Nothing here, just blue and black cards. Might just take the Triskaidekaphobia for the potential to play, although very slim potential at that. And none of these cards are remotely playable in this deck, I feel. The Vessel, of all the 5 vessels cycle here, I think that the black and the white are probably 2 of the more playable ones, also green situationally, and then the others not so much. But worth noting, lots of blue and black cards this late in the pack, so we'll see what else we find. Pyre Hound, 4 mana for a 2/3 with trample is nothing impressive, but again, with enough instants and sorceries, sort of similar to Prowess, but it actually lingers and sticks around. You actually get counters instead of just +1/+1 till the end of the turn. Don't think we're going to make use of the Homunculus or splashing green and black, so I'm actually going to take the Pyre Hound here. Keep my eyes open for more instants and sorceries. There's that Vessel, one of the lesser playable ones, I'd say. Ethereal Guidance, sorcery speed, not the most impressive trick, giving +2/+1 till end of turn, versus a Drownyard Temple. I'll go ahead and take the Temple. I don't think it's necessary exactly in our 2-color deck. That doesn't really work off the graveyard, but we'll see what the next couple of packs have to offer us. A Wicker Witch for an artifact, or the Dissension in the Rings. So I'll just go ahead and take the red card. I'm not going to do it for signaling purposes or anything. I think that the effect of that is pretty overstated. But I'm just going to go ahead and, once again, if it's between an unplayable red or an unplayable blue card, I'll just go ahead and take the red and a Hulking Devil to finish off the first pack here. See what else we can open in the next one. More Fiery Tempers, always great. Really wish we had that Scourge Wolf now. It looks like we're actually leaning more heavily red than white. And here's where things get very interesting. We have, wow, that's actually probably a record number of uncommons I've ever seen. 5 in 1 pack, and a Mythic. Also a Deadweight, which is almost like a Mythic common level removal. Just a single mana, -2/-2. So this is a very interesting pack. I'm leaning towards either the Mind Rack Demon and switching entirely into black, or the New Heath Chaplain, or perhaps Skin Invasion and Spiteful Motives. All of these I'd be happy to include in our deck. Question is, which one is best? So, Mind Rack Demon. Might as well look at the Mythic first. It's a 4/5 for 4, flying and trample. That's pretty much exactly what you want. There's not much else you could ask for, really, other than it not killing you, which unfortunately the Delirium effect might not be the easiest to obtain in this deck, but this early in the draft, I guess the midpoint of the draft, it might not be too late. That is really tempting. So if we drop the white, we're giving up just a couple of early drops take white, we go with the Nearheath Chaplain. I'm actually going to take the Demon. I think it is shaping up that we could have a Delirium deck, and it's certainly a fun-looking card. So now we're going to try and prioritize ways to turn that on. And here we have another pretty solid card, the Tooth Collector. 3/2 for 3 with a enter the battlefield effect, giving -1/-1, might kill off something like a Double Thorn Fox, for instance. And if you can achieve Delirium, it just keeps on triggering every turn. Also a human, if that's relevant. Inner Struggle, not impressed with. Another Dance with Devils. We already have a couple of 4-drops that I'm happy with. So also, if we were to pivot into Red-Green Werewolves, this is, I think, a very strong one. It comes down early, 3 mana, 2/3, nothing that impressive, but drawing cards if your opponent tries to flash in a Spirit or cast some sort of instant speed spell, it makes them have to play around it, as giving you a card or two is just a bit too much of a price. So I'd say it's between the Tooth Collector and the Dance, unless we're just going to abandon our plan to go black, go back to white with the Moorland Drifter. I'm going to go and take the Tooth Collector and try my best to pick up some Delirium Enablers here. Crow, which is sort of kind of one of them. Enters the battlefield or dies, you get some cards into the graveyard. Also Moonlight Hunt, which is nice in the Red-Green Werewolf deck. And a Niblis, and yet another Spirit, actually. No shortage of those. And an Unruly Mob and Uncaged Fury, I think, are some of our options. Also Warped Landscape, potentially maybe even splashing for white, but not really looking too likely for that. It is a nice card to add in a Delirium deck, as without fetch lands or anything like that, it's an easy way to get a land into the graveyard. So it's looking like, I think, the Crow here, just because of its, although lacking, but still possibility at least of putting cards into the graveyard for Delirium. We really want to have the Mind Rack Demon, almost guaranteed to have Delirium when it comes down, so that doesn't kill us over the short while we have to find something. Also a Sanitarium Skeleton I'll be happy to get back, but go ahead and take the Crow here. There's another Dissension, another Crow, Ghoulcaller's Accomplice, which I'm really interested in picking up, and another Sanguinary Mage. So a couple of early drops, 2 drops, and the Crow to choose from, I think. So how are things looking for Delirium? I really like the Ghoulcaller's Accomplice. Once again, a creature that is good on turn 2 as well as okay later in the game, turn 5 or 6. I'm very interested in picking up. Him going to the graveyard early, trading with a creature, and then coming back as another is certainly worth consideration, especially if we are planning to get cards into the graveyard frequently. Then he certainly has some more applications there. So we're losing out on the Spectral Shepherd, the Drifter, and the Militia Captain. That's biting into our 2-drops here, so I think I'm going to actually take the Ghoulcaller Accomplice here, winning out over the Crow of Dark Tiding, and assuming that we're moving into a red-black deck here. There's a Deadweight, which is a fantastic card this late in the draft to pick up. Also very happy, signaling, I guess, that black might continue to flow in this direction for a couple more picks. Malevolent Whispers, an act of treason effect, or threaten, I think, is the accepted term. Gaining control of a creature at the end of turn and attacking with it also gets a little bit stronger. And a Madness card, which is actually pretty interesting if you can do it at instant speed to snatch away one of your opponent's attacking creatures and block another with it. But certainly going to take the Deadweight here, almost a guaranteed to make our deck. Also an enchantment that can go into the graveyard easily by killing their 1 or 2 drop and then going to the graveyard on an early turn, setting up for the Mind Rack Demon. Gisa's Bidding, or Rancid Rats, I feel, is the pick here. I really like Prized Amalgam. If we were playing a blue-black deck, this is one of my favorite creatures. It always seems to make the deck, as in somebody opens it who's not playing blue-black, it gets passed to you when you are, and just a 3-mana 3/3 that has some recursion that's really easy to turn on, actually, especially with cards like Ghoulcaller's Accomplice. Pretty great staple of any blue-black zombie deck. Also, Gisa's Bidding, which is certainly one. Oh, I didn't even see the a second Mad Prophet. I don't think I can pass up on that, actually. The instant speed discard outlet with drawing cards, and I think I'm easily just going to take that and hope to get back Rancid Rats or Gisa's Bidding later in the draft somewhere. So here, another Delirium card, while also just being a decent 2-drop, 2 mana for a 2/1 that pings the opponent for a single point of damage and has Delirium. It will continue to ping them turn after turn, much like the Tooth Collector -1/-1 effect on a creature turn after turn. There's a Convicted Killer, 2/2 for 3 that transforms into a 4/4, nothing too exciting. And an Insolent Neonate, another instant speed discarding a card outlet for our single madness card. I'm going to go ahead and take the Gibbering Fiend here. And wow, a second Scourge Wolf. Unfortunately, we don't have the first to go along with it, but I will happily pick that up. And yet again, another Delirium card. So definitely going to prioritize that as best we can. I'm really happy that we went with the Mind Rack Demon here, as I haven't really seen too many exciting white cards coming by. So sometimes you just got to make the switch, no matter how uncertain it is. Nothing too exciting here. I'm actually a really big fan of Jace's Scrutiny. I really like this card. Seem to always have one in any blue deck that I play. It's a good combat trick that pseudo replaces itself. And besides that, really just the Cathar's Companion. And I do not think we're going to play the Creeping Dread, but I suppose I might just take a foil Invasive Surgery here. Don't expect to play anything in this pack. Let's go ahead and take it, though, because it looks the prettiest. Another Moorland Drifter and an Explosive Apparatus. I'm going to go ahead and take the Apparatus. Not too excited to play about it. Again, 1 mana for 1 card, and a net of 4 mana to deal 2 damage to a creature or player, but it does somewhat trigger Delirium. So we'll go ahead and pick that up. And here, an Uncaged Fury. Not that exciting, but potentially 10 damage out of nowhere with a Mind Rack Demon. We're going to town on our opponent, so I'll go ahead and take that as well. He does also have Trample, does he not? He does. So double strike, +1/+1 on a flying trampler is pretty hard to block. A Watcher in the Web, a Runaway Carriage, and Dissension. Go ahead and just take the Dissension, I suppose. Don't expect to really play it. And a Foil Island over a Hulking Devil. And a Vessel, which I also do not expect to play, but who knows. If you really need that Delirium, then you might just make the cut. So we're looking for a few more creatures to round out our curve, particularly Crows, I think, are a very nice 3-drop. They would fit nicely on the curve while also helping to enable Delirium. So let's see. Playable cards for us would be a Throttle and the Markov Dread Knight, which I'm certainly going to take. But also worth noting is a Bound by Moon Silver. Not Sliver, but Silver, one of the better removal spells. It's sort of like a pacifism that also negates a werewolf transformation and is recastable effectively by placing on other permanents. And a bunch of really nice green cards. The Duskwatch Recruiter, probably the best uncommon in the set. Gloom Widow, Confront the Unknown, and Rabid Bite. Rabid Bite probably being the best common in the set, tied with Fiery Temper, depending on the deck. But certainly going to take the Dread Knight. Unfortunately, not much here that could potentially make its way back around to us. Maybe in some universe, a Skeleton Key could find its way into the deck. But I'd be happy to pick up the Throttle or even a Dual Shot. There are several strong cards here, so there's a chance, hoping. Olivia's Bloodsworn. I'm happy to pick that up. Also another Fiery Temper, which I think I'll take over it, or a Murderous Compulsion, or a Farbog Revenant. So a number of solid cards here. I also really like the Scarecrow if we were still on like a tri-color deck route. Don't think Defender is exactly what we want here, though. So it's between the Bloodsworn or the removal spells. Murderous Compulsion or Fiery Temper. I think I have to take the Temper here. Really would like the Bloodsworn. Doesn't really have much synergy. I only have the one Vampire, the Dread Knight, to go along with him. But I think just having a good castable card, another Madness Enabler, or Madness Enabled card to go along with the Dread Knight or the 2 Mad Prophets is too good to pass up. Unfortunately, not a creature, though. Hope to pick up just a couple more of those, and should be in a decent spot. I'm probably looking to play the Explosive Apparatus here. And also possibly the Uncaged Fury. So hopefully our next 4 or 5 picks are bountiful in number of creatures. We're going to prioritize those as best we can. And as I say that, we've got 2 nice picks here, the Ever After or the Gatstaff Arsonists. I really do like the Arsonists. They're nothing too exceptional, but 5/4 for 5 is a decent-sized body. and then potentially transforming into a 6/5 with Menace, since by that time your opponent might be running low on spells. Could also pick up the Highland Lake to splash blue, but without like a Geist Blast or something, that won't be necessary, I don't think. The Corpse Trawler, if we were on a blue-black zombie plan from that first pack after that Rise from the Tides, but unfortunately we did not. Probably going to actually go with the Ever After, I think. Although it is difficult. We're rather short on creatures again, so second thought, I'm probably just going to go with the Arsonists, actually. Not for lacking, or as a result of lacking our creatures. I think that I have to give the nod to the creature. Ever After would be nice, though, with cards like Mindrack Demon and the Dread Knight coming back to play. Alright, so here are some nice white cards. Gossip Monger, Silver Strike, Thraben Inspector, Warped Landscape, if we sought to splash a color, and the Cult of the Waxing Moon, decent with lots of werewolves. We do not have, unfortunately. Don't really want to play Merciless Resolve here, but on the other hand, it does go somewhat well with Delirium. You can sacrifice a creature or land, and itself being an instant, that immediately puts 2 cards into the graveyard that apply towards Delirium. So I think I might take that, but hopefully, again, we're just looking for creatures, really. I think we can do better than Hulking Devils, so I'll go ahead and take the Resolve over that. And here yet another Arsonists, Twins of Maurer Estate, which could certainly make the cut. Another Act of Treason-ish effect, the Malevolent Whispers, and another Neonate. I don't think I really need the Neonate. If I had some more vampire synergy, then perhaps, but I think it's between the Arsonists and the Twins. And in this case, I'm likely going to go with the Twins, as with Madness, you can actually somewhat treat them like an instant speed 3-drop with Mad Prophets, putting them into play, interestingly enough. Don't really need another Arsonists over them, I think. I mean, their stats are comparable. Again, I don't really have much of a synergy to go along with Vampire or Werewolf either way, but I do have synergy with Madness, so I think I'm going to go ahead and take them over the Arsonists. And here, I think we fall pretty flat. There's the Reaper of Flight Moonsilver, and Stern Constable, Storm Rider, and then the Green Vessel as somewhat playable. Unfortunately, none of those are in our colors. Probably just going to take the Vessel of Malignity. Do wish we could make room for the Reaper. Pretty strong with cards like Devil's Playground as well, interestingly enough. Reaper, Angels, and Devils going together, but do not think we can afford the double splash white. So I'm going to go and take the Vessel. I highly doubt I play it, but can never really tell. All right, here's where it gets a bit more interesting again. I really like mana consistency. Foreboding Ruins, red and black. We have the double black and Mindrack Demon and Markov Dread Knight, and then the double red on turn 2 with the Scourge Wolf, Fiery Tempers, and Devil's Playgrounds later. There's another Explosive Apparatus, a not that very impressive Epitaph Golem, and a not that impressive Strongkirk Mentor. Need more than just one vampire, or 2 now rather, the Twins, who count as 1, and then the Markov Dread Knight. Only 2 vampires I do not think is enough to sway me in this direction. I'm just going to go ahead and take the Ruins. It's a rare also, but unfortunately not worth more than half of a ticket, I'm pretty sure. Here, not going to be playing any green or blue cards. Autumnal Gloom is rather nice, enabling Delirium, but do not have the green for it, unfortunately. I am actually very interested in playing this card. I certainly would. I think being able to put cards into the graveyard, and it does go with our Delirium. Probably just going to take the Macabre Waltz, however. Don't really think any of these are stronger than any other for us, but I'll go ahead and take that. Alright, so the Dual Shot and the Key came back. Forget what the card, I think it was a Throttle, was the one card we were really hoping to get back. This is the pack we opened up. Dual Shot, dealing some damage to 2 creatures, actually pretty strong against my deck. We have the Gibbering Fiend, the Crows, and I guess not too much else actually that fall to it. A lot of white cards that do. And then the Skeleton Key, which gives a creature Skulk, and dealing damage, it brings puts cards into the graveyard if you draw one. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dual Shot over that as an instant. It might make the cut. Another Delirium Enabler. Here I'm happy to pick up the Farbog Revenant. It's not the most impressive in a sort of aggressive leaning deck, but I'll happily take it anyway. I'm really a big fan of this card in a slower blue-black or black-white control-y shell, especially with the lifelink, and then you can use it to block and turn it on offense when necessary. So here, I actually might be able to conceivably splash white cards with a Forsaken Sanctuary. Don't think we're going to have room for the Corpse Trawler, and Hope Against Hope is rather interesting, but not in a red-black deck, perhaps in a green-white or some such. I'm going to take the Sanctuary and maybe splash some of these white cards here. And with the Warped Landscape, that might actually be the play. Some of our stronger early plays are in white, so might be interested in splashing that. Pretty happy with most every card I have here. Some obviously less so than others, but we'll see what we can do actually. Might be able to make something work here. Let's see what we got. Alright. So we managed to round out our creature count to a decent, but not that impressive 14. Creatures I might be interested in playing would be the White Splash for Spectral Shepherd, Moorland Drifter, and especially the Militia Captain. Other cards that I might play not so happily, definitely don't want to go with the Dissension in the Ranks, even though we got 2. I think we passed on a 3rd actually, so saw quite a few of these. What would I cut though if we went the white plan? Is this deck with its 2 colors better and more reliable than the 3-color deck with only a Warped Landscape and Forsaken Sanctuary to play? I think I might actually want to play the Drownyard Temple, although it is colorless and we have a number of double color casting cost cards. It does go well with things that put stuff into the graveyard, such as our Crow and our Mindwreck Demon and our Mad Prophets, if we don't need the land to trigger Delirium, or enable, I guess, as it's a keyword here. So I think we're certainly going to play the Drownyard Temple and the Foreboding Ruins, of course. Question is, do we play Warped Landscape? I think we do, even if we're just playing a 2-color deck, as it taps for mana, albeit not colored, but it can be used to fetch up colored mana and thin out the deck, as well as put a card into the graveyard. That is not very easy to do so otherwise. So is it worth splashing white for probably the Militia Captain and maybe the Spectral Shepherd, although we're not really hurting for 3 drops any longer. I think I do want to play this Militia Captain. It's not that much of a blow to our mana consistency to splash 1 white card with the Sanctuary and the Warped Landscape coming in. And being able to transform this semi-easily, we have a number of good creatures to play on curve, and then with the Devil's Playground, if necessary later in the game, immediately putting 4 onto the battlefield, we can transform this into a 5/5 or higher, and at the beginning of the end step, it grows by placing more 1/1 Human Cleric creature tokens onto the battlefield. Just a creature that, once it's transformed, it can't transform back, worth noting, and it continues to pump out an unending tide of dorky 1/1s. I think I am going to play the Militia Captain here, and the question is, for cuts, do we really need this Merciless Resolve or Dual Shot? I think are on the chopping block first. I do like Dual Shot a lot in a deck with creatures like Sanguinary Mage and the Pyrehound, as it's a cheap, pretty effective at times card that can enable that at instant speed. And again, only 1 mana, and potentially killing a multitude of 1 toughness creatures. Even just 1, trading 1 for 1 is fine, and it can deal a bit of damage, and you can trade a creature such as also profitably blocking them with the Scourge Wolf. Can put a 2/2 first striker in front of a 3 toughness creature, and then dual shot the 3 toughness creature and kill it with first strike. So I actually think I like the dual shot here. I think I can afford to cut the Merciless Resolve. Yeah. I think that's the right call. I like to have a creature count of 15, and then we have some non-creature spells that are effectively creatures like Devil's Playground. And Uncaged Fury, I think, could do quite a bit of damage with cards like Mindwreck Demon and the Dread Knight being evasive flyers already, especially with Trample on the demon, and a card like Militia Captain getting out of control. So I think I like the deck as it is here, just to get a look at what our creature curve would look like here. Nice number of 2s and 4s, and then some middle ground with our Fiery Tempers. Nice amount of removal as well. I usually shoot for 4, no less than 4 2-drops. And it seems like I usually end up with a glut of 3-drops, but not so much in this draft here. But I like this deck. I think we're going to roll with it the way it is. So for our mana base, let's see what they would recommend first. So just the 1 plains. I'll keep the 1 so we can fetch it with a Warped Landscape. Mostly going to be playing mountains, I feel. So we can cut maybe a swamp and 2 mountains for the Sanctuary, which is a black-white source, and the Ruins, which is a black-red source, and the Landscape, which is essentially any color we need. I think this is a 17-land deck also, and a bit wary of shedding a land to play another spell. Definitely don't think it's an 18-land deck, however. So the question is the Drownyard Temple. Is it worth the mana inconsistency for potentially having a nice synergy with the Mad Prophet and putting things into the graveyard with Mindwreck Demon and Crow and getting it back later? The way it stands, let's see, we have 6 untapped black sources. Excuse me, 9 untapped red sources, plus the 1 Foreboding Ruins. I'm inclined to think this is likely an untapped source most of the time. We should always have a Swamp or Mountain in hand when we have this and preparing to play it. And then 5 untapped black sources, potentially a 6th with the Foreboding Ruins again, and then a 7th with the Forsaken Sanctuary and the Warped Landscape, adding a little bit more consistency. I actually think I'm going to roll with what I have here, and that could be a mistake with the Drownyard Temple. I think I would likely cut a mountain for it. That's just going to make it a bit too difficult, I think, to play the Scourge Wolf and the Fiery Tempers on curve. Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna leave the Drownyard Temple on the sidelines for now and roll with what we got. So stay tuned for match 1, game 1. Be back in a moment.